Hello and welcome back to BikeRadar Builds. Yes, after a long hiatus, the Build series is back and we've got a veritable smorgasbord of bikes to show you. BikeRadar Builds showcases our own beloved bikes that we've been riding, testing and modifying to our heart's content. This episode, the emphasis is most definitely on modifying with a capital M. Starting us off, we have Liam's stunningly lightweight Specialized Aethos and its divisive mix of a Shimano Ultegra Di2 drivetrain and Campagnolo wheels. Next up, we have a man who loves mullets so much we're surprised he doesn't have one himself. It's Wilsoft's mulleted Specialized Enduro SX. You may remember Felix's Genesis Croix from that time he fell into some stinging nettles on a Gravel Diaries episode. Not that we remind him of it at all. So much so we seem to have scared him to the point that it's no longer the gravel grinder it started out as. Finally, we have my beloved Transition Spur, which is literally more triggers broom than the downcountry weapon it started out life as.
Welcome to my bike. The frame is the S-Works model of the Specialized Aethos. If I could have got the Pro or Expert frame set, I would have done. Let's be honest, the difference in ride quality that you feel when pootling through the lanes isn't worth the €1,200 price difference. Anyway, I'm in the UK and that's the only frame set available here, so I scraped together the cash and started building. Shimano's Ultegra Di2 group set was the only choice I considered. It has always been my go-to group set, and in this 12-speed form, it was an easy choice to make. Dura Ace is, in my eyes, just a bit too expensive. But saying that, 105 Di2 wasn't actually out when I built this. I'd certainly consider it if I was building now. Now, my gearing reflects a move away from road racing. This is a 52-36 tooth chainring combo, which I pair with an 11 to 30 tooth cassette. I ride flat group rides and it has done a trip to the Alps, an ideal spread for me. I used to run a 53-39 up front and an 11-28 in the back, and I'd like to apologise to my knees for that choice. Now, the choice of frame set also reflects my riding these days. I like the low weight, but I'm certainly not obsessive. The handling is just so good and the bike is very comfortable too. My bike is a 52 centimeter model. I use the 120mm S-Works stem with my saddle kind of in this very scientific position. The saddle height is 730mm from the bottom bracket to the midpoint of the saddle. The saddle nose to the center of the bar is 565mm. I use 170mm cranks and run 40cm bars. Now, speaking of the bar, this is a Ritchie Neoclassic in a 40cm width. They have a lovely flat drop section, which I find very comfy. And if you're wondering why they're not yet taped, well, I was waiting for a set of these. These are Di2 Sprint shifters. I will wrap the bar tape once I've put these on and kind of determined the position. The wheels, well, these are Campagnolo Bora WTO 60s. Yes, the rims are very shiny, but it is the hubs that I love the most. Nothing, in my opinion, beats the quality of a Campagnolo hub. Mwah! On these wheels are the Specialized Turbo Rapid Air T2/T5 tyres, which I have set up tubeless. This is the one component which I'm actually looking to change. Now, these tyres are nice, don't get me wrong, but I would like to get a set of GP5000 TLRs. I rode them over on the cobbles of Roubaix and I was absolutely blown away by the sure-footed ride feel. Now, up top there is a slightly modified S-Works Roman saddle. I say slightly modified, I crashed into Road CC's Jamie Williams in a road race. Now, his backside and the expensive collection of beta fuel gels in his back pockets were an exceptionally effective crash pad for me, but my bike hit the very high and hard verge at quite some speed. The saddle base had cracked, so I fixed it with some epoxy and seems to be all right. Finishing my bike is a set of Ultegra pedals, very solid, very quiet, and a pair of Elite Rocco bottle cages. The rotors are a 140mm on the rear and a 160mm up front. Now, it is my idea of bike perfection because it suits my riding style of dancing my way up a climb and then sailing down the other side. Now, despite the light, I have been using this for a bit of commuting recently. It doesn't do all of my road miles. We'll take a look at my hot pink Kinesis in the next episode, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see that one. It's arguably far more interesting. Shall we see if Felix has picked his bike out of the stinging nettles?
This is my absolute classic all-rounder Genesis Croix, which a few months ago underwent a beautiful transformation from a gravel bike to this chunky-tired, mudguard-mounted winter road bike. 1 million BikeRadar Gold stars to those who recognise this frame. It's been on many adventures over the last couple of years. I think the muted tones of this top spec model look pretty classy, and I really like the detail on the graphics in the right light. Now, I tend to ride more gravel miles in the summer months, but I really liked how comfortable this bike felt, and whittling away winter miles felt like the perfect thing to be doing on this bike. So I set about changing a few bits and pieces. First up, I swapped the wheels and tyres. I've gone for my classic winter setup here with a rear Mason Times Hunt 4-season disc wheel, and on the front I've gone for something which I think is probably one of my all-time favourite bits of kit. It's a dynamo wheel, which effectively means battery-free lighting forever. More specifically though, it's the Hunt Superdura disc wheel with a Son Deluxe hub. I've connected it to an Exposure Revo up front with an Exposure Red Eye on the back. Okay, so by now you might have noticed the absolutely terrible cable routing going on up the front. That is totally my fault. I just didn't want to commit to cutting the dynamo cable because I might be using it on another bike in the future. But I've since realised how truly ugly it is, so do bully me in the comments to sort that out and I might get around to it. One thing you do get on the top spec Croix 50 is the rather elegant carbon fork, which does have internal dynamo cable routing. No winter bike would be complete without full-length mudguards, of course, and these are the SKS Bluemels in a nice matte black colour. I chose the widest tyres I could get in the frame with the mudguards, and these are a classic set of WTB Expanse in a 32mm size. This is a tried and tested tubeless setup which I used on the Transatlantic Way Ultra event. The video for that adventure and another video on the bike that I rode is in the description. Gearing on this bike remains unchanged from its gravel guise, but it is the highly dependable GRX RX800 2x drivetrain. For winter road miles, it has a nice low gearing for spinning up debris-strewn road climbs, and when Jack and Robin send you down what can only be described as a riverbed on a so-called road ride. I also prefer the lever design over the Ultegra 11-speed that I have on my Cannondale Synapse. It's just much easier to brake efficiently, and I think it's better for shorter fingers like I have. To finish up, there's a few nice details to mention. Firstly, I've chosen an inline seat post from Whiskey Parts for a more powerful and comfortable position. This is matched with a nice 110mm Whiskey stem, which is actually 20mm longer than the original Genesis stem. I prefer the longer position for road riding. I've got my current favourite saddle, which is the Pro Stealth, and I've got Kinesis bar tape, which is reflective and actually pretty comfortable in all weathers and pretty visible at night too. And finally, some of you might have been wanting to know, the bottle cages on here are Lezyne power cages in a very cool tan colour. Oh, and the third bottle cage on the down tube is really handy for longer distances because you can stash essentials in a tool caddy, leaving your jersey pockets free for more snacks. So that's a whistle-stop tour of my Genesis Croix. I'm now going to hand you over to Tom to see what he's been cooking up in his workshop.
The Spur is Transition's take on a downcountry bike, and right from when I first laid eyes on the renders, even before the official launch, I knew that I had to have one. While it started life as a completely stock off-the-shelf bike, it is now anything but stock. In fact, it's far quicker and easier to list the things that I haven't changed rather than the things that I have. The only bits left are the rear shock, half of the fork, and the headset, though I do have a very shiny new Industry 9 headset winging its way to me as we speak. You'll notice the frame isn't mentioned there because this is in fact my second Spur frame, after the original developed a small paint issue. so it is literally like Trigger's broom at this point. Among all of the changes, a big theme has been weight saving, which I've then thrown completely out of the window with changes that actually add weight. Yeah, go figure, I don't understand it either. Examples of this include the gorgeous and very light Hunt Proven Carbon XC race wheels, which I've then wrapped in nearly 2 kilograms worth of Maxxis Forecaster rubber. Or the wonderfully colour matched oil slick TI bolts that I've added to the Croix Mag cockpit, which is super comfortable, but the stem does weigh the same as a small moon. A whole contradiction there on its own, which is made even worse by the level of coordination I've gone to match the stem bolts, saddle rails, chain to the SRAM G2 Ultimate brakes when the fork lowers and uppers don't even match. Which brings me ironically onto one of my favourite parts of the bike, the RockShox SID fork. I don't like using the word game changer, but for me this SID is one worthy of the title. It's incredibly light, has impressive damping control and is plenty stiff enough to hammer as hard as my skills will allow. If RockShox can sort the bushing play issues that are the cause of the mismatched lowers, I think it will genuinely be the best fork that RockShox currently produces. I'm also a huge fan of just how good this bike looks. The lines of the frame are striking and it looks more like a slalom bike than the all-day downcountry monster that it actually is. The super clean wireless cockpit appeases my hatred of too many cables at the front of other bikes on the market. And every time I look at it, it just makes me want to go out and go for a pedal. And you can't ask for more than that. It's perfect for my favourite techie XC rides in trail centre thrashing, with enough get up and go to chase down e-bikes on the climb, yet it's still barely enough to hang with much longer travel bikes on descent. It's a true all-round weapon.
Hi, I'm Will from MB UK and the build I'm going to talk about today is my 2014 Specialized Enduro SX. Not to be confused with the 180mm travel Specialized SX Trail, the Enduro SX is just 100mm travel with 26-inch wheels and is designed to slay dual slalom and four-cross tracks across the world. I love the concept of a small, lightweight, flickable full suspension, and Specialized's SX epitomizes this play-bikey, dual slalomy, four-crossy, stiff, short travel thing to a T. There were 3 previous generations of the SX before this, and I owned a Mark 1 and a Mark 2. Specialized designed this frame for their team riders, including Mitch Ropolato, to go and race the Sea Otter Classic and Crankworx festivals, which featured dual slalom races. Unlike previous versions of this bike, the Mark IV didn't have to do double duty as a slopestyle bike as well, as Specialized had just brought out their P-Slope, a concentric pivot 80mm travel slopestyle specific machine. This meant that the Specialized Enduro SX has a standard FSR suspension design to go with a super low 12.5-inch BB and a very low 2:1 leverage ratio actuating the Fox Float CTD rear shock. The SX features 142mm rear hub spacing and a press-fit BB, which is still contentious despite this frame being 10 years old. The build of this bike is a little unconventional. I'm running it with a mini Mullet setup with a 27.5-inch front wheel and a 26-inch on the rear. Head to the link in the description for more on how and why I did that. I'm running a pair of handguards because I race this bike in dual slalom events like the Malvern Classic, and when those poles hit your hands, they hurt. But more than that, they can pull on your brake lever and flip you over the handlebars. Not ideal. I'm running some lightweight Hope Pro 2 Evo hubs with an aluminium free hub laced to the Stan's ZTR Flow EX rims. The rest of the build is pretty light too, with 175mm XTR cranks and a carbon seat. It has a Bergtech ride-wide Scandium bar, as well as their pedals and chainring, and the drivetrain is ultra compact with the SRAM DH close ratio 7-speed cassette and a matching mech and shifter, which was actually a wedding gift from my mate Will. Cheers, dude. To ride, the super short 440mm chainstays, low seat and floor-scrapingly low bottom bracket height make this bike a delight to corner, as it is snappy to change direction but stable once you're committed to a turn. It is super light, which is useful when you're trying for maximum acceleration out of the gate, and the suspension is very firm, just adding a little bit of traction when it's most needed and taking the sting out of any big jumps. This bike is tiny by modern standards, which makes it a joy to ride on tight tracks and makes everything feel super fast. The Mullet setup takes advantage of the low bottom bracket height, allowing the larger front wheel to slacken the head angle and calm the handling, whilst providing a little extra traction on the front end for some predictable drifting in corners. I'm really looking forward to strafing dual slalom and four-cross tracks this year, and particularly for the Malvern Classic Festival this summer. So keep an eye on the channel for a full video on that event.
We'd love to know what you think of our opinion dividing builds, so let us know down in the comments, and be sure to hit us up with your own bikes on social media using the hashtag BikeRadar Builds. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.